6344. That's 727-6344. Marcelino's Healing Arts.
For all your water needs, call Sparklets of Nye County. Locally owned and operated for over 11 years, we deliver to your home, office, or on-site construction projects. Call Kelly, Bob, or Larry today and begin enjoying Sparklets water. 727-4480.
There's a new look in Pahrump. Precious Properties signs everywhere, many with bright red and white sold signs. Precious Properties offering a large inventory of residential and commercial properties, plus homes and businesses to buy or sell. See Fili Cativas, the girl in the big white hat, at Precious Properties, 2090 South Highway 160. Phone 727-5255.
Hi, welcome to Sports Talk. Got a lot to talk about tonight, including baseball playoffs coming down to the wire. We got college football and NFL football. First in Major League Baseball, the Atlanta Braves eliminated in 3 games by the Cardinals, but the Cardinals find it a little tougher going against the New York Mets. I was talking to somebody earlier tonight and found it kind of funny how the Braves can beat the Mets can't beat the Braves, the Cardinals beat the Braves, but they can't beat the Mets. So you figure it out. Right now the Mets are up 2-0, coming home. Best-of-7 series, I believe, to play the next 3 games at home. So the Cardinals are going to be hard-pressed to get that game, the series back to St. Louis. Do expect Mark McGwire maybe to bat in the first inning of all 3 of those games to make sure he gets in at bat in those games. Also in the American League, you have the Mariners knocking off the White Sox in 3 games and the Yankees advancing in the playoffs also. They're meeting tonight. Yankees and the Mariners series tied 1 game apiece. I left the house. The Yankees were ahead, I believe, 4-2 in the 6th inning. So a victory by the Yankees would put them up 2-1, and we're looking for a nice Subway series. The Bronx and Queens head-to-head. It ought to be a great matchup if it gets that far. It's all speculation right now, but it's pointing in that direction. Phone number here is 751-5786, 751-5786 if you have any calls regarding the baseball playoffs. Of course, next Friday night, don't forget we got Mike Tyson and Andrew Galata. Tyson a 4-1 favorite over Galata. That ought to be quite a match. You got a 4-round over and under prop bet for that fight if you just want to bet the over and under for the rounds. I mean, what do you expect in a fight like that? You got Galata and you got Tyson, 2 of the dirtiest fighters that we've seen in boxing over the last, 2-3 decades. Tyson is going to be hard pressed to, to fight fair for 4 rounds, let alone go over 4 rounds. It ought to be a good entertaining fight, but for $49.95, you might want to spend your money elsewhere. Let's go to college football. Talk about the first game here is Purdue and Northwestern. Purdue on the road -3.5 against Northwestern. Northwestern is 3-0 in the Big Ten Conference. Purdue 2-1. Purdue's ranked 21st in the country while Northwestern is ranked 18th. Purdue is ranked 3rd in total offense in the nation, led by senior quarterback Drew Brees. He's ranked number 1 in the country in passing. He also has running back Montrell Lowe, who can take it the distance. But I'll tell you what, Purdue's going to have to go up against Northwestern, who's ranked number 10 in total offense in the country. They continually play a fast-paced, hurry-up offense, and they've only allowed 1 100-yard game in the last 10 games. So Northwestern's defense has definitely been playing some pretty good ball lately. Also, they have the only 1,000-yard rusher in the nation in Damian Anderson. So through, I believe, 6 games, Northwestern has a 1,000-yard rusher, and you figure that out to about 170, 180 yards a game. Also, Zach Kustak has been outstanding at quarterback. This is for first place in the Big Ten, so it's going to be a great matchup. Total is 64.5 in a game. Yeah, look for a lot of points to be scored, but 64.5 points in 60 minutes. You got to get a point a minute, but they've been lighting up the scoreboard. Let's go to the second game. This might be the game of the weekend. We have Oklahoma and Kansas State. Oklahoma ranked 8th after a big victory last week, 63-14 against number 11 Texas. K-State come in, another big win against Kansas. They're -10 with a total of 63. Quarterback Josh Heupel for Oklahoma is ranked number 9 in the nation and second in total offense, while Oklahoma is averaging 47.8 points a game. Kansas State is leading the nation with 51.1. So if you add them together, you got around 99 points a game between these two teams. Of course, they're not going to be playing some of the cupcakes that they played earlier in order to rack up these stats, but still, K-State ranked number 1 in scoring. They're led by quarterback Jonathan Beasley, and they got a wide receiver named Quincy Morgan, who's definitely a game breaker. Their defense led by All-American Jeremetrius Butler. He has 4 interceptions, including 3 in his last 4 games. So K-State and Oklahoma, it's going to be a great game. 63 is the total on this game. Like I said, they both average about 99 points combined. Oklahoma 5-0, K-State 6-0, both undefeated in the Big 12 Conference. It's going to be a great game. We got a lot of OU fans here in town. A few of them come by Terriblestown, and they've been really touting this game as the game of the year. So after Oklahoma demolished Texas last week, like I said, 63-14, you got to give the guy, some credit, because nobody predicted Oklahoma would be in this position this early in the season, where they're going to be basically fighting for a New Year's Day bowl game already. So it's going to be a great game. You got number 8 Oklahoma, number 3 K-State. Let's go to the third college game. The last one we're going to talk about is number 19 Auburn and number 9 Florida. Florida -9 with a total of 55.5. Auburn and Florida both come into the game at 5-1, 3-1 in the respective conferences. Auburn is led by quarterback Ben Leard, who's been very impressive this year. He's going to need help, of course, from running back Rudy Johnson, who will be up against the 75th best run defense in the NCAA. That's very shocking to hear a Florida team ranked that low against the run. Florida's going to be starting freshman quarterback Rex Grossman for the second time. He replaced Jesse Palmer. He has wide receiver Jabbar Gaffney to go to, but the big story here, of course, is Florida -9 against Auburn. The winner here, obviously, is the front runner in the conference. They're going to go to 6-1 and 3-1 in the conference. Auburn definitely a surprise team of the year here. They've moved all the way up to 19 in the polls. Florida with that victory against Tennessee and then the loss to LSU. You don't know which Florida team is going to show up. 751-5786 if you want to call. I'm going to have a couple of trivia questions later. Before I go to the pros, I want to mention UNLV and Colorado State. I didn't have this game written down to talk about. UNLV going to Colorado State, a time change. It's going to be on ESPN2 at 6:30 at night. UNLV is led by quarterback Jason Thomas, who's done a great job, and you got to give John Robinson a hand. Rebels are playing excellent ball. Of course, one of their 2 losses was at BYU, 10-7. You can't fault them for that. BYU, a tough team, especially down there in Provo. But UNLV playing excellent ball. Their cornerback, one of the best cornerbacks in the country, his name slips my mind at the moment. But UNLV as a team is really gelling and grouping together at the right time. The underground line on this game is Colorado State -6.5. Look for UNLV to come to Colorado State and make a statement. Look for UNLV to win that game straight up. If you know anybody you can bet just for a friendly bet, take the Rebels +6.5. Okay, we're going to go to the pros here. The first game we want to talk about, the Rams and the Falcons. Rams, of course, had a bye week last week, which they needed, obviously, 5-0. They've scored 217 points on the year. You figure that's about 43 points a game. Number 1 offense, that's a no-brainer. They've scored 3 touchdowns of 65 yards or more the last time they played the Falcons. So what do you think the Falcons can do to stop that this time? Falcons, on the other hand, are last in the league rushing offensively, and they're going to start Danny Cannell at quarterback, replacing Chandler. Also, their defense is ranked 29th totally in the NFL. That's run and pass combined for Atlanta. Like I said, the first time the Rams had 3 touchdowns for 65 yards or more. They're rested up. Marshall Faulk is leading the league in scoring after the bye week, and the Rams are putting up points at a record clip. If you have a comment about the Rams or a team that can stop the Rams, I appreciate a call. It's 751-5786. That'd be interesting to talk about, because as I look at the Rams' schedule, there's 2 games on their schedule. I think legitimately right now that teams have a good chance not to beat the Rams, but at least to stay competitive, maybe knock a win out or 2. And one of them, of course, would be a shocker. In a couple of weeks, the Rams are going to be playing in San Francisco. And San Francisco played the Rams a couple of weeks ago and they played them pretty well. They were ahead of the game midway through the second quarter. And St. Louis did pull away and end up with the victory. But like I said, San Francisco is rolling offensively with Jeff Garcia second in the league in passing and 3 wide receivers, J.J. Stokes and Terrell Owens, and Jerry Rice has 4 touchdowns this year. And the running game is with Charlie Garner is definitely potent. So In a couple of weeks, I know the Rams look untouchable right now, but they're going to be playing San Francisco, and I'm going to predict now that that's going to be one of their toughest games of the year. And, of course, later on in the season, they're hooking up against the only undefeated team other than themselves, the Vikings, on December 10th. That game will be in St. Louis, a rematch of last year's NFC playoff game. Right now, the Rams, of course, 17.5 against the Falcons with a total of 59.5. That total's been bet down elsewhere to 58.5 and 58. But, I mean, if the Rams score 57 points against the Chargers 2 weeks ago, what are they going to do here this game against Atlanta, a team they thoroughly dominated twice last year, a team that they've already, like I said, scored 3 monstrous touchdowns on. Falcons are coming in with their second-string quarterback. Atlanta off a loss last week against the Giants, 13-6. Go ahead, we got a caller? Caller?
Can you hear me? It's Ray Mello.
Hey, Ray, what's happening, pal?
Yeah, I got a question for you. I read something in the paper that kind of, I didn't believe it. Something about a basketball selling for $59,000, and it originally was going for $400,000.
Yeah, it must have been Chamberlain's ball.
Yeah, it's a 100-point game this guy had at 1 point.
Yeah, the guy, I didn't read the story recently, but I read it back a while, like
Maybe
a few months ago.
It was an old paper I was looking
Oh. You subscribe to them old papers, right?
Well, a buddy gives me the old RJs, and I look through for this interesting sports talk stuff, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad you got that. But anyway, this guy, what he did was he got the basketball after the game when Will Chamberlain scored his 100 points, and they actually knew where the kid lived and everything, and Chamberlain said, go ahead and let him keep the ball. Well, they ended up playing on the blacktop with it and really messing the ball up. So it went from probably a $2 million, $3 million ball down to what he sold it for. And there was even a question of the authenticity, but through witnesses and documentation, the guy did prove it was the Wilt Chamberlain ball of 100 points when he scored it against the New York Knicks. I believe it was like in 1961 or somewhere in that area.
It amazes me that 100 points in one game, it just seems like it's impossible. You know?
Well, when you're 7'2" and the guy guarding you, intentionally fouls your belly button, and everybody back then.
Is Chamberlain the fellow that claimed that he had affairs with 10,000 women or something? Is he the one or what?
You're asking a tough question,
this
Ray.
is sports trivia.
Yeah, actually, I think it was 25,000 women.
25,000.
Yeah.
He was, yeah. Well, anyway, hey, congratulations on your best bet of the week last week, and you're just coming through week after week. I tell people about it. When I talk about it at the horse place, they think it's horses. They say, you mean Foley's giving winning horses?
Yeah.
I says, well, no, he's giving a football game, you know. So.
Yeah, I give winners out every week, Ray, and I still got bald tires on my car. Does that tell you something?
I don't know how to interpret that, Foley.
I'm not doing
not
something
know.
right.
I do not know. Okay, keep up the good work. And
I got a
good
special
show
one for you later. Nobody will pick this one. I know that.
Okay.
Thanks,
have a good
Ray.
night. Bye.
Appreciate the call. Second game, we want to talk about Dallas Cowboys and New York Giants. Dallas coming off a bye. Giants coming in with a 13-6 victory last week. Dallas 2-3. Want to go to a break? All right, we're going to go to a break and come back to the Dallas Giants game and talk about the rest of the 10 o'clock games, the 1 o'clock games, of course, Sunday and Monday night. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Bob at True Value Store here in Pahrump.
It's the newest hardware store in Pahrump, folks. That's right. Serving all your electrical plumbing needs right here on 850 Lola Lane, folks, right in the heart of town. That's right. 727-1582. Head on over to True Value Hardware and check out their huge lumber yard, including culverts. Inside, check out the large showroom, including faucets, building materials, accessories, paints, all types of garden supplies. Head on over. Their friendly staff will take care of you today. True Value Hardware, the newest hardware store.
Hi, my name is Trish Rippey, and I'd like to invite you to my home, the new Beehive Home, Pahrump's finest senior assisted living residence. If you or a loved one need help with the tasks of daily living, come visit us at Beehive. We offer private rooms with half baths, delicious, nutritious meals, assistance with medications and personal care, and lots of fun activities. Call us at 751-3611. Let our home be your home at Beehive.
Visit Valley Crafts. Meet Paula and her pony. See a wonderland of arts and crafts. There's a complete line of supplies, and if we don't have it, well, we can order it. Shop a large selection of gifts and collectibles, including beautiful, one-of-a-kind, homemade porcelain dolls. Beginner and advanced classes for adults and children. Valley Crafts, located at Wheeler Plaza, 921 South Highway 160.
Your Panel King of Pahrump with a large on-site inventory. Visit our tech room where you'll find roping and riding chaps, saddle blankets, classic equine bell boots, spurs, halters, bits, plus everything to make your pony shine. Western Connections, your one-stop shop for those important Western supplies. 1 block off Mesquite between Blagg and Highway 160. Phone 727-7008.
Welcome back to Sports Talk. The game we were talking about before we left, Dallas and the Giants. Dallas ranked last in the NFL against the run, against the Giants coming in, of course, with Thunder and Lightning, which haven't been producing much Thunder and Lightning the last couple of weeks. Tiki Barber and Ron Dane. It's going to be a wake-up call for Dane and Barber. If they can't run on Dallas, there might be some changes in store for the Giants, who had been slumping until last week, beating Atlanta 13-6. They were 1 of 12 on third down against Atlanta last week, which really stalled a lot of their drives. The good news for the Cowboys, they're coming in off a bye week, which means Smith and Aikman are healthy for the first time in a while. This ought to be an interesting game. I really have no opinion on this game. It's a tough game, a conference game. They always play each other close, so it's really a coin toss as far as I'm concerned. The next game should be a great game, maybe the game of the day on Sunday. The Baltimore Ravens at the Washington Redskins. Washington -3.5 with a total of 35.5. Ravens with the great defense, of course, first versus the run. Last week, though, they had problems on the ground themselves against Jacksonville, 24 carries for 53 yards as a team, and they haven't allowed a first down runner in the last 23 games. On the other hand, the Redskins, offensively, they're ranked 5th and defensively ranked 6th. Very well balanced. They've played excellent ball. They've won 3 of their last 4 games. Davis last week, 23 carries, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Brad Johnson's had a couple of great games to really spark the Redskins. Irving Fryer will miss this game, though, for the Redskins. That is a big loss. Remember, Michael Westbrook already out. And I appreciate a call, 751-5786. How about Washington, Danny? How about your mom? I know she's watching. Somebody called me about the Redskins here. They've really turned things around. Tied with the Giants for first place. Of course, they played each other earlier in the year, and if it came down to a tiebreaker as it is right now, Washington would get the nod for the division. Johnson, in the last 3 games, has completed 67% of his passes, but this will be a stiff test for the Redskins, both offensively and defensively, against the Ravens. Priest Holmes, another good couple of games for the Ravens. Go ahead, we got a caller?
Yeah, Bill, Danny, how are you?
Hi, Dan, how's it going?
Okay, yeah. Just real fast, a little baseball to you. How about the Mets, huh?
Oh, wow, I'll tell you what. Are the Yankees still winning as we speak?
The Yankees will win it.
Okay.
Yeah, the Yankees will win it. I think it was 4-1 about the 6th inning, but they had like about 10 hits off of Pettit.
Yeah,
but they couldn't put anything together. They couldn't bunch them up, you know.
Well, if the Yankees win tonight, it's 2-1. Tomorrow, a chance to go to 3-1. If they get Seattle down 3-1 with the Mets up 2-0, you know, the pressure's really on the Yankees. If they make the World Series and the Mets, or excuse me, if they don't make the World Series and the Mets do, you know, Steinbrenner really clean house.
That's true. That's true.
Before we get to football, let me ask you a question about the Yankees. I know you're a Mets fan. What do you think about Joe Torre leaving Jose Canseco off the roster and carrying 11 pitchers against Seattle?
You know, Bill, I wasn't even aware. I saw Canseco. They flashed to the dugout the other night, and I wasn't even aware that he wasn't on the roster. I guess sometimes, no matter who they're playing against, I think a manager likes to carry a certain amount of pitchers, you know, to have that extra arm to go through that option.
Yeah.
Where maybe years ago they needed somebody to come off the bench to play a couple of different positions, like maybe a switch hitter, this type of thing. You know, the late inning strategy. You know how baseball has changed over the years.
Well, you know, this is the American League, though, so the only time you're going to be really changing pitchers is for lefty-righty situations.
Right.
You got a guy like Rivera that can go 2 innings if you need him and pitch the next day still. I mean, they have plenty of relievers. The thing that I don't understand is, you know, he keeps, and I'm a big Cone fan myself, he keeps David Cone on the roster, and he leaves Jose Canseco out. And I'm nothing to say anything about Cone, but he didn't play at all in the series prior to this, the 5-game series the Yankees had. And he had struggled all year, and the Yankees have had so much trouble scoring runs. They went 20-some innings without a run. How can you leave a guy like Canseco off your roster?
That's a good question. He's got a lot of home runs in his career. He does strike out, but he does.
Well, against the A's, you know, you figure to keep Canseco on. You don't see any David Cone versus the A's. When the Yankees play Seattle, you expect to see low-scoring games because, first of all, Seattle's probably one of the worst hitters parks in baseball right now.
That's true.
You got A-Rod hitting 278 in Seattle with like 15 homers or 14 homers, or whatever it was. On the road, he's hitting 370 with 28, double the amount of home runs. Obviously, it's got to be the park because A-Rod can hit anywhere. So you figure that the pitchers are going to end up with basically some good stats, as it proved the first couple of games. Even today, 4-1 or 4-2 in 6 or 7 innings. I mean, that's a great game for an American League pitcher.
Well, I was looking for Pettit. Down the last couple of years, Pettit's given up the long ball a lot. I don't know if you're aware of that. I know one of the teams I like in the American League was, I know I'm a Met fan, Delgado.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos Delgado used to light him up. I think he used to hit the Hard Rock Cafe. Like, the ball was still rising,
Yeah.
And this type of stuff. But getting real fast, and I don't want to keep you on too long. The Skins, like you say, what are we, 4-2?
Yeah, 4-2.
4-2. This is a big rivalry because it's Baltimore and where the Skins play over there. That's very close. They're like kissing cousins.
Mm.
And of course, the Colts and the Redskins for years had a little bit of a rivalry going.
Right.
And the Ravens have a great defense. I listened to that Sunday night game.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the Jaguars, they self-destructed.
Well, we'll talk about that. I'm going to talk about the Jaguars later. I got some interesting stats from that Sunday night game that might shock you because I looked at it myself today and it shocked me. But like I said, I'll get into the Jaguars game later. But as far as go ahead and continue with the Redskins, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, you're not interrupting me. I want to give you a good laugh. I know you're going to be watching the game of the Sunday night games
Right.
on ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a chance, you got to listen to the broadcast on the radio. It's on AM. And Sam Walsh, I get the ex-Cincinnati Bengal coach.
Right.
Right. He does. I think he's the color commentary. You got to listen to him for at least a quarter because he doesn't take any prisoners. He tells it like it is,
Well, that'd be easy for me to do since I can't stand listening to the ESPN announcers anyway. Joe Theismann, he does more talking than me.
Well, you're pretty good. But I want to say that the Redskins and the Mets, I'm rooting for them. And I was happy the other day when I told you, I said, how many times do you have on one day, if you're rooting for baseball and football, you have your two favorite teams on? I got a kick out of that.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. But I'll tell you what, if they have a Subway Series between the Yankees and the Mets, man, they're going to be paying mega overtime for these police officers. The funny thing about it, though, every cop working a game will have a bet on it.
Yeah, there you go.
Somewhere, right?
There you go. You look for the Mets not to have to leave New York, though, right? Is that what you're figuring?
It's going to be a lot of short traveling.
Uh-huh.
But when that series is set in stone, we'll talk more about it. It'll be a treat for me. I've never ever seen anything like Subway Series. I mean, about 10, 11 years ago, we had the Bay Bridge series with
Right.
Oakland and San Francisco, which the earthquake screwed up the whole series. I was pulling into Smith's to buy a couple steaks for a barbecue. All of a sudden, my radio went out on me. I'm getting ready for the game,
Uh-huh.
and then they canceled the game. The whole day's playing around the World Series.
A couple of years back, they had over in Missouri, they had Kansas City against St. Louis. And remember Vince Coleman?
Yeah, I got ran over by the tarp.
Yeah, I was telling somebody that the other day. They said, "No, I'm telling you, before the series even started, it was wild." I'll let you go.
Okay, Danny.
See you later. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Right, bye-bye.
Okay, the next game we need to talk about, Oakland Raiders and Kansas City Chiefs. He was talking about rivalries in the NFL. This is about as big as it gets. Last week, Gannon 21 for 43, 310 yards, 2 interceptions, and a touchdown. Of course, Tim Brown, steady as always, ex-Notre Damer, 7 receptions, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns, definitely the big threat for Oakland. Last week in overtime, after a few missed field goals, they did finally upend another rival, which was San Francisco, speaking about Bay Bridge, 34-28. Kansas City coming in this week off a bye. A great situation here for Oakland in Kansas City. If they can beat them, they'll open up a 2-game lead over Kansas City. 5-1. Kansas City will drop to 4-2. Oakland with basically all the tiebreakers in their possession. Last week, Janikowski, like I said, missed a couple of field goals. The big leg kicker from Florida State has missed all field goal attempts from over 39 yards, which is pretty shocking. And the ironic part is his missed field goal turns into another possession for San Francisco. They miss a field goal blocked by Anthony Dorsett, which gives Oakland back the ball. If the kicker Janikowski would have made the field goal, Oakland ends up winning by 3. So he doesn't make the field goal. The other guy misses it. Oakland ends up getting a touchdown to Tim Brown in overtime, ended up winning by 6. Cost the sportsbook thousands of dollars in Las Vegas, as well as a local establishment in Pahrump. Anyway, it was a great game for everybody who got to watch it. it got over about 5 o'clock, just in time to enjoy the second game coming on at 5:30. 751-5786 if you got a call. The next game on the agenda is the San Diego Chargers and the Buffalo Bills. San Diego a disappointing 0-6, and Buffalo coming in and also a disappointing 2-3. Last week, Buffalo losing to Miami 22-13. Buffalo's defense coming into the game fourth versus both the run and the pass, second overall. But the ironic part here for Buffalo, Rob Johnson, their quarterback, who's got tendonitis in their arm, he's their leading rusher. So you could see where a few of Buffalo's problems are. If your quarterback is your leading rusher and his name isn't Fran Tarkenton or Randall Cunningham, you got some problems. Rob Johnson, never known for his mobility, leading Buffalo in rushing. Harbaugh and Marino for San Diego are going to start. One's going to start the first quarter. The other's going to start the second quarter. And the coach is going to make a decision at halftime who played better, and that's who's going to start the third and fourth quarter. So you figure that one out. San Diego, very disappointing season right now at 0-6 in complete disarray. Also, San Diego contributing factor with that 0-6, AFC high 15 turnovers. You can't turn the ball over and expect to win in the NFL. The next game, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Quite a difference here. Cincinnati still with no wins. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, has won 2 in a row after starting out 0-3. Jerome Bettis last week, 25 carries, 107 yards, and a touchdown. Cordell Stewart ended up starting last week for the Steelers for the second straight time. Came up with a victory for the second straight time, but in Bill Cowher's infinite wisdom, he does pull Cordell Stewart for Kent Graham. Even though I'm not a Cordell Stewart fan, I think if your team's 0-3 and you have a quarterback that comes in and wins 2 games in a row for you, he should start and continue to start until something bad happens. Kent Graham got 3 starts for the Steelers, couldn't come up with a victory, had trouble scoring, injured himself, and he finds himself just healthy enough to come back against the Bengals. Is that a coincidence? The Bengals no wins, Kent Graham gets healthy. It probably is a coincidence, but it's an interesting sidelight to the game. The Bengals, like I said, 0-6. They're averaging 7.5 points a game, and they're last in total offense in the league and 30th running the ball. Akili Smith, the quarterback that held out last year from Oregon, really the downfall of this team. Still the lowest rated quarterback in the NFL, barely hitting over 40% of his passes. He's had a couple of games this year where he's had total yardage under 100 yards passing in a game. And in the NFL now, in the days of Peyton Manning and your Kurt Warners, throwing the ball for 88 yards in an NFL game isn't going to cut it. So Cincinnati with a lot of problems, going to Pittsburgh, a team that's won 2 in a row. But it'll be interesting this week with Kent Graham starting instead of Cordell Stewart. Pittsburgh fans are still always out in force here at Terriblestown on Sunday. We had a problem picking up the Steeler games, and we had a lot of people rumbling. I didn't know we had that many people in town that liked the Steelers, but this week we promised to have that on for you, so make sure you come on down and request a screen. We'll put it up for you. Steelers and the Bengals this week. Next game I want to talk about, the last 10 o'clock game before we go to a break, is the Carolina Panthers and the New Orleans Saints. Panthers held the ball for 40 minutes versus Seattle last week. Berline had 2 touchdown passes, and of course Joe Nedney, 4 field goals for Carolina. Their defense finally starting to play, but nobody's defense is playing like the Saints. Number 1 versus the pass. The Saints, who would have thought that this year, coming in number 1 versus the pass. Of course, they got Joe Johnson back from a knee injury last year. Ricky Williams, another big game, 30 carries, 128 yards, and a touchdown. That's his 3rd straight game with 100 yards. Dividends finally paying off for Ricky Williams. I liked him coming out of Texas. I felt bad for him last year going into that New Orleans offense with Billy Joe Hobart, Billy Joe Tolliver. Any more Billy Joes out there? Anyway, Ricky Williams, 3 straight 100-yard games. They are going to miss Jake Reed this week, though. He did sprain his ankle, had a high ankle sprain. But they do have Joe Horn, who's been lighting up the scoreboard. 4 catches last week, a couple of touchdowns. Saints, a pretty fine team to watch on TV. Very exciting. They got that open offense, wide open West Coast offense. So it's a different team than last year. So this ought to be a good game. Carolina and New Orleans, 2 teams much improved over the last couple of years. Well, that's our last 10 o'clock game. We got 1 o'clock games coming up, the 5 o'clock game, and of course Monday night. So make sure you come right back to Sports Talk.
Sets the tone and style with 32 years experience. Ask us about our foreign and domestic tile, oak cork and bamboo flooring, carpet and custom cabinets, and all setting materials, wholesale and retail prices. Let us design that special gift, including tile trivets, marble and granite cutting boards, plus one-of-a-kind gift certificates. Desert Stone and Tile, 1,500 square feet of designer packages, including Southwest motifs. 835 South Linda, across from Camps Propane, 751-8006.
The name you can count on, Roy Mankins Insurance, serving Pahrump since 1985. Dependable, knowledgeable, and reputable. Covering all your insurance needs. Roy Mankins Insurance, 1271 South Highway 160, 727-5222.
The subject of funerals, burial, or cremation is never easy to discuss. Arranging these types of services in advance can be a worthwhile experience. By pre-arranging your burial or cremation services, you can reduce the emotional burden it may place on your survivors. Also, prepaying these services can reduce or eliminate the financial strain it may cause. These are just a couple of the many advantages of pre-arranging one service. Should you have any questions about pre-planning, please call Pahrump Family Mortuary at 727-4099.
The next game on the agenda, a pretty good matchup here for the Seattle Seahawks. They're home against the Indianapolis Colts. Indianapolis coming home second in total offense. Peyton Manning, another big game last week for Indianapolis. Over 300 yards passing. He was 31 of 54, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 334 yards. So Manning definitely on course. Edgar and James struggled a little last week in that 24-16 loss to New England. Statistically, though, Indianapolis did outgain New England. They had more first downs. The only thing is they didn't beat New England on a scoreboard, which is, of course, the all-important statistic. Indianapolis 3-2 on the year. Their only 2 losses coming at a home loss to Oakland, who came back and beat them after a big deficit, and last week on the road to New England. So this is a pretty big matchup for Indianapolis. They can either go to 4-2 and put the Jets in a situation where they have to win this week. If they lose, they go to 3-3, which would be a real big disappointment for all Indianapolis fans. Indianapolis expected to be the front runner in the AFC East. And right now you got Miami and the Jets on top in that division. Seattle last week limited to 10 first downs, including 0 for 11 third down conversions. A lot of problems in Seattle. John Kitna being benched. Heward coming in for Kitna. The running game, though, continues to blossom. Ricky Waters leads the AFC in average per carry. And off the bench, of course, Sean Alexander, the rookie out of Alabama, has done it all, receiving, running, some punt returns. So Seattle having a little problems on offense that doesn't have anything to do with the running game. Definitely the quarterback situation. And this is a second-year Holmgren has had Kitna on his squad. So if he doesn't do anything this year as far as obtaining a quarterback, look for Seattle to move up in the draft next year, because it looks as though John Kitna is not the answer at quarterback for Seattle. Next game you want to talk about, speaking of the Jets and the Patriots, that's who the matchup is. New York at New England. Testaverde will get the start. Last week, Testaverde was in for only 1 play. Injured is a pinched nerve in his shoulder. Ray Lucas came off the bench. 13 completions, 25 yards. 13 completions, 25 attempts, 99 yards. Not a very good game at all. 2 interceptions. Curtis Martin also struggling offensively. 15 carries for 59 yards. Patriots have won 2 in a row for the first time in a long time. And the rookie out of Kansas State, Bishop, 1 pass last week, came in right before the half. New England got the ball back at midfield. Bishop comes in from about the 45-yard line, fades back, and throws a Hail Mary for 55 yards and a touchdown. Really the turning point in that game as Indianapolis drove down on New England right before the half with about 10 seconds left, kicked the field goal to take the lead. New England got the ball back, a good kick return, got him to almost midfield with a couple seconds left. Bishop comes in and throws that pass. Bledsoe sacked 4 times last week, so they might want to think about using Bishop a little more than just for 1 pass. I mean, Bledsoe has been beat up repeatedly this year. He's got hand problems. His thumb's been hitting helmets, and he's just been knocked down, beaten, and bloodied. So right now the Patriots 2-4, looking for another victory here before their bye week to go to 3-4. If they can go to 3-4 and get a bye week, and the second half of the season turn on, their defense has played well all year for New England. So it's going to be a tough game for the Jets to win in New England, even though they are 4-1. Next game, the Cleveland Browns and the Denver Broncos, two teams. Definitely a difference here on offense. Browns coming in losing 3 in a row. The Broncos snapping a 2-game losing streak last week. Brian Greasy 27 of 40, 235 yards and 3 touchdowns. Also, Denver's defense second versus the run. So Denver just not an offensive team here. Defense playing great against the run, and that definitely is Cleveland's strong point. Last week, Cleveland, Travis Prentice, 28 carries, 97 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But the big news for Cleveland is Tim Couch just continues to get better every week. He's in the top 5 in passing in the AFC. Last week, Couch was 16 of 22, 1 touchdown and 138 yards. Cleveland, like I said, has lost 3 games in a row after starting out the season 2-1. All the faint playoff hopes the Browns fans had early in the year are going by the wayside. But Cleveland has a lot to look forward to in the coming years. You got a young Couch, you got a good running game, and you got a good young defensive line. Through the draft the last 2 years, Cleveland has really picked up a couple of good defenders on defense. Don't forget they lost their offensive tackle to that eye injury, or who knows, how good this team could have been on offense. But like I said, Tim Couch, top 5 right now in the AFC in passing, only his second year out of Kentucky. He's got the thriller Michael Jackson on his team, and Prentice last week, like I said, 3 touchdowns rushing for Cleveland. Look for Cleveland to be a team of the future and maybe pick up some people this year in the draft. Next game, San Francisco 49ers at the Green Bay Packers. 2 high-scoring offenses. Green Bay -4 with a total of 50. Last week, San Francisco lost a heartbreaker in overtime, 34-28 to the Raiders. On the other hand, Green Bay fell behind early to the Lions. I believe it was something like 24-3, fought back, and ended up losing finally 31-24. Brett Favre, a lot of turnovers still, but still putting up some big numbers. 27 of 43, 293 yards, 2 touchdowns, and like I said, 3 interceptions last week. Big news for Green Bay this week. Dorsey Levens is probable. He's missed 4 games this year, including last week's game, but he will be back this week. San Francisco has no problems putting points on the board. Jeff Garcia, second in the NFL in touchdowns. Last week, 28 of 41 for 4 touchdowns and over 300 yards passing. Terrell Owens, 7 catches, 180 yards, a couple of touchdowns. And Jerry Rice and J.J. Stokes also pinching in. Defenses allowed for San Francisco, though, 32 points per game. That's the big problem on San Francisco is their defense. Remember the days when they had McQuarters and Wilson and Ken Norton was in his prime, and of course they had Dion and the rest of them guys. It's a different San Francisco team right now. A victory last week against San Francisco would have really against Oakland would have put San Francisco in a driver's seat for a wild card position, because this team is a lot better than people give them credit for. They do need a lot of improvement in their secondary, but their team is putting up a lot of points. So San Francisco at Green Bay -4. If I had an opinion on the game, I think I'd have to take San Francisco just on the way that their offense is performing. They're not really turning the ball over. Green Bay has had a lot of problems as far as turnovers, but like I say, this week Levens is probable to come back and help Brett Favre out. The last 1:15 game we have is the Philadelphia Eagles at the Arizona Cardinals. The Eagles come in with a record of 3-3. The Cardinals 2-3. Bad news for Philadelphia. Deuce Staley out for the season. Last week, Donovan McNabb, 17 of 34, 2 touchdowns, 186 yards. But the Philadelphia running game really missing Staley. 13 carries as a team, 36 yards rushing, including only 8 yards by his replacement, Brian Mitchell. Michael Pittman for Arizona had 26 carries for 107 yards. Also, they did score on 5 of their last 6 possessions of the game. Arizona did to squeak out a 29-21 victory against Cleveland. Last week, Philadelphia lost a close game to Washington, 17-14. That's really been Philadelphia's downfall this year. There's a lot of close games. They did have that big victory in Dallas to open the season, really turned everybody's head. Again, another big victory on Sunday night against Atlanta. I think it was like 42-10 a couple of weeks ago. So Philadelphia at times can put the points on the board, but without Deuce Staley, he's a guy that can run and catch, and he's a good blocker. He's just a great all-around back. He's going to be out the rest of the season with a foot injury. So as we look back on some of the games here for Sunday, some of the big games, you got some great rivalries. Like Danny said earlier, you got Baltimore and Washington. You got Oakland, KC. And San Francisco, Green Bay, remember the glory days when San Francisco was great and Green Bay were great. Teams meeting in the playoffs for numerous years in a row. But definitely times have changed in the NFL as the strength at the top right now in the NFC. You're looking at the Rams and the Vikings, and in the AFC, teams like the Ravens and the Titans, and even in the AFC East, you got the Jets and the Dolphins on top with one loss. Phone number here is 751-5786. Give me some input on some of these divisions. Who do you think has the toughest division? Who do you think's got these easy schedules? And who do you think can advance if they go to the playoffs based on some of the tough teams that they've played? The Sunday night game here, Minnesota and the Bears. Minnesota, big win Monday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 30-23. Vikings, as I said, one of the only two undefeated teams in the NFL. They come in 5-0. Number one in the NFL in rushing. I know a lot of people wouldn't think that about the Vikings. Usually think Randy Moss, Chris Carter. You think passing, but Minnesota number one in the NFL rushing the football. Dante Culpepper Monday night, a big game, 15-19, just one interception and 3 touchdown passes. Very mobile. Of course, you've seen the first play of the game. Tampa Bay wins the toss. They get the kickoff. The first pass of the game, Sean King throws the ball over the middle to Keyshawn Johnson, who fumbles the ball, picked up by Minnesota. The very next play, Dante Culpepper runs 27 yards, full steam for a touchdown. And Minnesota never looked back until late in the game, fourth quarter. Only Minnesota could do this. Going for a field goal late in the game to go up by 7. The field goal is blocked. Tampa Bay runs it in for a touchdown. Just deja vu all over again. Minnesota ended up getting the ball back, going down and scoring, and then putting another field goal on the board to pull out that game. The Bears, on the other hand, last week, big problems for the Bears running the ball. 10 carries, 24 yards. McDowell sacked 5 times. They did play Minnesota earlier in the year. They played them tough in the Metrodome. I believe it was a 3 or 4 point game, high scoring. I think 31-27 or 31-28. McDowell, by far, his best game was against Minnesota. So even if the Bears coming in with 1 win right now, 1-5, they still have to have confidence playing the Vikings because they do seem to play Minnesota tough every game. Minnesota with a 5-0 record. If they win this, we'll go to 6-0. And, they already have a 3-game lead over Tampa Bay in the NFC Central, a 2-game lead over Detroit, but Tampa Bay still the team which Minnesota is counting against because Detroit doesn't seem to be a team that's going to be able to stay there for the whole year. Detroit has too many problems at quarterback and a lot of injuries in the defensive line. Okay, we've looked at the whole schedule for Sunday and talked about baseball. What we have right now is the Monday night game to come up. We're going to go to a break, but before we do, I want to thank Miller Lite for the jacket last week. Dan, I forgot to ask you about that jacket. I gave that a pullover jacket out for a trivia question. They were going to be sending glasses up this week and a few other giveaways, maybe a freezer and even a trip. But like I said, it depends on you people calling and making the show interesting. 751-5786. We'll be right back with the Monday night game. And, of course, don't forget the best bet.
Hi, Carl here with Floyd's Ace Hardware or Ace Sports Place, whichever. If you guys haven't come in and looked, you need to. We got a whole new line of Fila workout clothes for the women. We got men's golf shirts. We've got all kinds of Fila stuff that is just, this stuff is really dynamite. Also in our shoe line, we just picked up New Balance. They just come in, the first order has just come in. Airwalk, now we have those in stock. We also, remember, not only that, in that back wall, we have 50% off our shoes. Okay, there's a whole line here on the side there. 50% off. That's a killer deal right there by itself. You got to come out and check out all the new merchandise. I could stand here and go and name about 1,000 names, but you guys, our watches, we just got some dynamite watches in that are absolutely cool. For you younger kids, okay, you want something that's a little bit different, you got to come check these X watches out. They're dynamite.
Gallery of Home Furnishings is having a huge Simmons truckload sale. Mattresses of all types. Pick your discount by choosing a balloon with purchase. This truckload sale will be going on through the month of October. We're located behind Albertsons. Mattresses of all types. Simmons huge truckload sale going on now at the Gallery of Home Furnishings. 727-3600.
Want to begin enjoying clean, fresh water delivered to your home, office, or construction sites? Call Kelly, Bob, or Larry at Sparklets of Nye County and begin enjoying cool, fresh water today.
This here is the entrance to our contractor sales. Most of our contractors come in here and talk to Al, who is our customer service and contract sales manager. If you need anything, come in and see Al and he'll help you out.
True Value friendly staff will take real good care of you. Come on over and check out the large inventory, folks. If you're a contractor, you've got to go to True Value. True Value has everything you need in the lot. They have their own truss manufacturing plant right on the premises. Get on over there. Check it out. It's a great place to go. It's a fun time, and they'll take good care of you. True Value Hardware.
What everybody should know when you...
Hi, welcome back to Sports Talk. Phone number here is 751-5786. I'm going to need some calls here. I got about 10 minutes to kill before I talk about the Monday night game and the bet of the week. Going back to some of the selections we made earlier this year, if you've been following the bet of the week, it's been red hot. I think it's, I believe it's 6-0. Ray, if I'm right or wrong, give me a call. I really don't know. You've been following it really close. Monday night's game, of course, is Jacksonville at Tennessee, and that will be the game of the week. 751-5786. I want a couple of calls here to talk about last Monday night's game. Did you watch it? What did you think? Minnesota, Tampa Bay. We had a lot of people down at Terriblestown for the Monday night party. Of course, the Miller girls were there. It was a great time, a full house, including giveaways such as actual NFL jerseys, footballs, T-shirts, hats. It's a great time down there. So if you haven't been down there, make sure you get down there. Admission is totally free, and it's a great time every Monday night. Big screen plus a lot of little TVs around you. We got a call? Go ahead, call.
Yeah, it's Ray Mello.
Yeah, Ray, how's that going?
5-1.
5-1?
You missed one. I think it was the second week.
Oh, 49ers.
Yeah, 49ers.
Nah.
Perry Swanson had his best bet coming that week, but you missed that one. Otherwise, you're perfect for it.
Well, you know, since Perry won that week and I lost, he's been missing. You know, he hasn't been here.
He just figured he's not going to stick his neck out anymore.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him. I haven't talked to him since then.
Well, I mean, you're doing real good, and I tell people about you and your show and everything else, and they seem to say, some ask me, say, oh, is that on cable or what? I said, no, it's a local TV station, Channel 41. Some of them don't know that it exists, you know, so I try to encourage them to call.
Well, Ray, if you did me a favor here next week, in one hand I want you to carry your flag, and the other hand I want a picture of me. Can you do that on the street?
Fully on Sports Talk, huh? Right
I'm
on
only
the street,
kidding, obviously. I know you got your own agenda there.
Yeah, well, I just want to let you know, I mean, this best bet is something great, you know, because I know very little about football. I watch the games and everything, but I can never pick these teams. And I told you personally a few times, it seems like whatever I pick, just the opposite happens.
Right.
And yet I can't get myself to bet the opposite. I'll say, well, geez, you know, I got a hunch on this team, and it works just the opposite.
Well, you watched the game Monday night, right?
Yeah.
Remember I remember you were telling me about when they blocked the field goal. You thought, what the hell was going on here? And this.
Yeah, it was real crazy, and then the fumbles and everything else. And I said, this is not usual, you know, but anything can happen in these football games.
Now, you used to hang around with a lot of policemen back in Chicago. I remember you telling me stories, right?
I was in a rock group. The whole group was Cops Up Me.
Yeah,
well. Non-copper in the rock group. Apollos Apache is the name of the group.
Okay, so you hung around the policemen. What do you think? What I was talking about earlier, when the New York Series, the World Series, with all the all the extra policemen are going to have to be.
Yeah, they'll be betting.
Yeah,
sure
they'll be betting, and they're trying to outlaw betting now. What kind of crap is that?
Listen, there were more cops in Chicago hanging out at the bookie joints than you could believe. I mean, they ran there. You know, you had to kind of beat the pat to the bookie because the cops were betting. I mean, you know, but what is wrong with that? I mean, you know, I don't understand. This is a non-violent situation. People betting their money on the game or whatever. And everybody says, oh, it's outrageous. And no.
Well, the whole thing here is it's all everything done over the counter here in Nevada is all documented by the Gaming Control Board. They're worried about these local bookies at the schools. Well, they should take care of that situation in their own state and leave us alone. You know, the big problems don't come from Nevada. Nevada is the solution to many problems that have to do with these games that the points are moving 6 and 7 points. Because if nobody's documenting what's happening, you know, in these games, you know, you go to the Mirage and, you know, you're trying to lay off $100,000 on the game, well, there's going to raise some eyebrows, you know. You start, you know, trying to lay off $100,000 in New York, you can call up 20 bookies and lay off, you know, $5,000 to each bookie, and nobody's going to know anything.
You remember Bob Stupek's $100,000 bet about 10 years ago? He bet on the Bengals and
against the Niners.
and they gave him a roll of nickels. It was Little Caesars, I think, booked it for.
Yeah.
They gave him a roll of nickels for.
That was actually $1 million bet, Ray.
Was it $1 million?
It was $1 million bet.
$1 million.
But the
Oh,
thing is,
yeah.
the thing is, on a Super Bowl, okay, I want you to understand that that's really not that big of a deal, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because on a Super Bowl, back then they had what you call layoffs. You could take $10 million on a bet in a Super Bowl, and it's not a big deal because in a Super Bowl it's one game, and if I have the line at 7 on a game, everybody in the whole state's going to have 7. So what they could do is they're just going to take your bet. You know, it's going to be a big publicity stunt. They're going to take your $1 million wager, okay, at their business, and they're going to take $950,000 and go to different hotels around town and lay off the bet because you're laying $1,100,000 to win $1 million. Well, they're just going to take whatever $990,000 to win $90,000 and go to the Stardust, the Mirage, the Hilton, this, that, and the other thing, and they're going to all get the same number, but they're going to have the publicity of taking $1 million wager.
Well, if you remember Little Caesars, it was.
I do. Little Caesars took some big action. It was right next to
the former MGM. What's it called now?
I can't even think of the place.
One on Flamingo. I don't know.
Barbary Coast?
Well, yeah, it's just a little bit down from Barbary Coast, but it was just such a little dinky joint. I used to play blackjack there at 50 cents a hand, and I would stay there, and they would have all kinds of trouble with the air conditioner, and you'd be sweating, but you had a 50 cents. You're just hanging out there, you know.
Little Caesars was next to Churchill Downs. That's the local book.
Well, Stupak, they cut his vig to $50,000 on that bet, as I recall, because of the publicity.
The money they're making alone just on publicity is worth $50,000.
Right.
I mean, they did stories on it. Jimmy the Greek came in. Not Jimmy the Greek, but the channel CBS people came in, did interviews with him, and of course, it also helps Stupak out. With the publicity, he's not one to back down from publicity.
And he brought it in cash. He brought it in cash in suitcases.
Yeah, and some of them, some of the hundreds at the bottom had red ink on them. Nobody knew why though. But I got the best bet coming up here on Monday night. It's going to be
the last question.
Go ahead.
Can these pro games end in a tie if they go in that overtime and nobody scores or something like that?
Yeah.
Can they end in a tie yet or not?
Yeah, they can. NFL games can end in a tie. They go 15 minutes, and if you notice, I think we talked about this last week on the parlay cards.
Yeah, right.
Usually on the ties win card, where if you win, if it's a tie, if there's a game somewhere around -1 or -2, I'll put that game at a pick'em no matter what. Even you'll come in and let's say the Giants are -2 against the Packers. Well, I'll put the game at a pick because. I mean, if I put it at 2, there's a chance that it could tie, and if it ties, both teams win. But if you put it at a pick, odds are there's not going to be a tie score at the end of the game. So, to me, anything below 3 points can be a pick anyway.
Is there a reason why you don't make all the games or all the things at half points, so there's always a vig for you guys? I know sometimes you got to return all the money, right? If it's a tie, then you return both ends, and including the vig.
Right. Well, a little bookmaking secret. If you come down to Terriblestown, I would say 9 out of 10 games I put on the board are half-point games because, like I said, ties aren't going to pay the bills. And you basically want a decision. The only games I put up like solid numbers are 3s in some instances, not all. Sometimes I'll put games at 3.5 or 2.5 just to get a bet on a game, instead of, people don't like laying solid, 3s and 7s. People like the halves, 3.5. They like taking the 3.5 or laying the 2.5. They like laying the 6.5 or taking the 7.5. They just don't, so when you put up them solid numbers, to me, it takes away from a lot of bettors.
It always amazed me when a big game would come in and it would be right at that number. And I'm saying, boy, they got to return both ends of this. And I says, why don't they just make it half point?
Right.
I don't understand the logic, but like you say, I'm learning every week a little bit. I learn a little bit easier when I get that best bet and it comes in. It makes it a lot easier.
The thing is with 3, if you put the game at 2.5, that's the problem with the parlay cards. I mean, because when you put a parlay card number out, the Jets are 2.5 over so-and-so. Well, that's 2.5 all week. If they keep, if you get $10,000 bet at -2.5 on your parlay card, you can never move that parlay card to 3. So you got to be real careful when you're putting out parlay cards and you're using that number 3. You got to put out 2.5 and 3.5. And I'm not the only place. I mean, you go to any place in Vegas, you check out these ties win parlay cards. You can even go down to the other establishment here in town, which I won't mention. And you go to the sports book, and you go to their ties win, and they don't have any 3s on there. They'll use 2 or 4, because 3 is, just the most common number. You'd rather use a 2 or a 4, give somebody either less a point or more of a point to avoid having it land on 3 and giving both sides a win. You might, just give that one side a W instead
Do
of both
people out
sides.
here shop around on these lines, Bill, or what?
Not really.
No.
No. But I got to go. I got the Monday night game
All right.
coming up. Thanks for the call, Ray.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.
Okay. Monday night game, Jacksonville and Tennessee. Jacksonville slumping right now at 2-4. Tennessee coming in 4-1. Jacksonville last week losing to Baltimore 15-10, while Tennessee extended Cincinnati's losing streak at the start of the year to 6 with a 23-14 win. Last week for Jacksonville, though, Mark Brunell was 18 of 28, 2 touchdowns and 167 yards. The only thing that happened last week for Jacksonville that was positive was Keenan McCardle had 16 catches. Him and Smith combined 16 catches for 158 yards. They out first down the Ravens in that game. If you watch that game, it's got to be pretty shocking. Baltimore and Jacksonville, you think Baltimore had such a great defense. They played such a great game. Jacksonville had 22 first downs to the Ravens' 10 first downs. Jacksonville moved the ball a lot last week, and, the little dink passes, Brunell hitting, like I said, McCardle and Smith on the outside. Jacksonville could move the ball downfield, but they got 1 field goal. They had, I think, 7 fumbles, including, I think, 4 of them were turned over. And you know that Coughlin's can't put up with that any longer. There's been some grumblings by the Jacksonville players that Coughlin's practices have been too hard and he needs to calm down a little bit. Well, he did this week, and they're going to be going up against Tennessee, who's second against the pass defensively. McNair last week was 19 of 31, 230 yards and a touchdown. But remember Tennessee's problem here. Their passing game, they're missing Kevin Dyson. He's out for the year. Yancey Thigpen and Pickens, the guy they got from Cincinnati, both questionable for this week. Even if they do play, they won't be 100%. The one thing Tennessee does have on its side, of course, is Eddie George last week, 36 carries, 181 yards and a touchdown. George, of course, one of the top 3 backs in the NFL. He's a workhorse. This week's pick for the best bet of the week, I'm going with Monday night's game. I'm taking the Jacksonville Jaguars. That line is up to 6. I expect Jacksonville to play a great game. If they lose, they're going to go to 2-5, and they might as well kiss the playoffs or any type of home field advantage away. Tony Baselli is getting healthier every week. Even though they did lose last week to Baltimore 15-10, there's no great shame in that. Remember, the Ravens have started out strong. They got a great defense. Jacksonville's going to come into this game in Tennessee focused, and I believe they're going to win the game straight up without the points. But just to be on the safe side, do take Jacksonville plus the 6. Well, it's been another great show, and next week at the same time, 7:30, I definitely next week will have some Miller Lite stuff to give away, another jacket maybe. Don't forget next week also, forget the Tyson Galata fight. It's going to be on at 7:30 also. You don't want to watch that. It's $50. Make sure you tune in here. It's absolutely free. Some great information. I hope we have a lot more callers next week. I'll be seeing you next week, 7:30. Be here.
What everybody should know when you're looking for real estate here in the Pahrump Valley. When you call one of these ads, you're being greeted by an agent of the seller. They're contracted by the seller to get the highest price. Call Blue Diamond Real Estate.
Hi, I'm Jack Hay. As a buyer's broker, I can put my 15 years of real estate experience here in the Pahrump Valley to work for you, the buyer. The best part is there's no fees or additional costs.
So don't overpay. Call Jack Hay, Blue Diamond Real Estate.